we are gonna go over the best in slot gear before the raid for tanking warriors. Yes, I made a guide on tanking warriors. I will be assuming you're going the correct spec, which is Fury, because there is no point in going prot even with a shield, okay? I am not talking about dual wield tanking. Even with a shield, you go Fury. It shouldn't matter too much if you go prot. It shouldn't change the stat list, but yes, that's what I'm gonna be assuming. Now, what is my goal when I gear up a tank? What is my goal for when I go to the first fight in Molten Core? What do I want to get? Number one priority is getting the hit cap. I also, if it is possible, I do not want to sacrifice my armor. If I have to sacrifice, if I gotta equip like a leather item to get my hit cap, I will, but armor is really freaking important early on, because the sooner you get a bunch of armor, the sooner you can dual wield tank, and that will make up for almost all the low stats you could have. I just want to have rage, okay? Tanking without rage sucks. But anyway, this might go a little off the rails of what you think a traditional pre-raid beast list is. This will also try to be on the reasonable side. I am not gonna be trying to give you stuff that takes like an ungodly amount of time to grind. I am not gonna put the Lionheart helmet on it. I mean, you might as well take it if you can afford it. I do not think you can afford it. So yeah, I will try to stay within reason here. So let's go, let's talk about it. Now for the helmet, once again, the one you really want is the Lionheart helmet here. It will cost you somewhere about 3,000 gold to get this helmet on, so I am not gonna spend 3,000 gold on a helmet. The next best thing, because this thing has 2% hit and 2% crit, the next best thing is actually the Helm of the Executioner. It is like a 15% chance, not awfully rare in Stratholm. It has 2% hit and 14 strength. It is not a bad helmet at all, and it is steel plate, so you can get the same amount of hit and you can stay pretty much current without breaking the bank. That's gonna be my approach. Now for the helmet, I will probably go for the Libram of Fire Resistance, because if you're a tank, you're probably gonna be tanking Ragnaros at some point, so you might as well put fire resistance on it. There is a fire resistance alternative and it has defense, but that's Git's call, by the way. Git's, let's see, you can get 15 fire resistance on it. I am not gonna take it. I am not sacrificing 2% hit for 15 fire resistance. That's the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals, maybe ever. Now for the necklace, that's also gonna be one that is very easy to get. There is a necklace with hit on it. I will not use Dire Maul items except for one example. I will talk about it, but we will not go for Dire Maul items because Dire Maul is not out. I think it's coming out in January, so if you're watching in January, you can get that. But yeah, we're gonna be taking the Ember Fury Talisman. It has 7 fire resistance and 1% crit. It is super easy to get because it is on the first boss of Ubers, and if you're a warrior, you're gonna spend an eternity in Ubers. So you are gonna get it even if you don't want it. You might as well get it now. Also, fire resistance is gonna be useful. For the shoulders, we are gonna take the Valor shoulders. They drop from Rend and they are just really freaking good. 9 Agi, 11 strength and 17 stamina. There is not a lot of great options. You can take True Strike or something like that if you want the 2% hit. There is one from a quest that also gives you 2% hit, but they are leather and we are not gonna take freaking leather. Now for the back, we're gonna be taking the Gargoyle Cape. This is from a rare in Stratholm, so it is not super common. You might have a hard time getting it. I got it every time. It's not that unlikely, but if you cannot get it, you can also get this one from the Emperor in BRD. It is almost as good, not as good. We're gonna get the Gargoyle Cape though. For the chest, okay, like the obvious choice is gonna be the Savage Gladiator Chain. Of course, it is an extremely rare item. 14% chance, and it doesn't sound too bad, right? 14% chance. It actually is a 14% chance of a boss that has a 1 in 5 chance to spawn, because the arena in BRD has several bosses that can spawn instead. So you are actually looking like a 2% chance of getting this item. It is not very reliable. If you can get it, of course, this is gonna be best in slot. Otherwise, you can get the good old reliable Breastplate of Valor. It drops from Drakisat in Ubers. 24 stamina, 15 strength, 10 agility. It is really freaking good. Not as good, but it is something you can get. We are gonna dream big here. We're gonna pretend it drops. For the bracers, this is also from Ubers, and you're gonna recognize a pattern. Everything is from freaking Ubers. That's gonna be the Battleborn Arm Bracers right here. 1% hit, 1% crit. It doesn't get any sweeter than that, and it is also plate. Now for the gloves, you can get a very easy one. That's Boons Vice Grips. This is 2% hit and it's from a simple quest in Ubers. They are mail, which is not great, but you can easily go for it. So this is definitely a very strong option. You can also go for River Claws. River closes 1% crit and 9 strength. This is also super good, but we are gonna go for Boon's Grips instead because everybody has access to this item and 2% hit is 2% hit. And as you can see, we are 5% hit. Now, there is a problem here if you're a tank. Do you have a weapon racial or not? If you have a weapon racial, you only need 6% hit, but if you do not have a weapon racial, you need 9, and that's a huge waste of stats. If this were Dire Maul, this would be very easy to fix, because what is the best weapon you can get? Usually is a dagger. As a tank, you want a very fast weapon, and if that is the case, you can get several items from Dire Maul. The most convenient is going to be the Mogger's Belt. Right here is a simple belt. It gives you 5 dagger skill and 1% crit. Amazing belt. You can also get the Distracting Dagger, which is 6 dagger skill, an off-hander, so you got a dual wield, but it's still super good. However, they are in Dire Maul. You cannot get them. What do you do in that scenario? Well, so if you want to get hit cap with a weapon racial right now, there is not a lot of options. You can get, for example, Edge Masters. They are going for 7,000 gold. 7,000 gold they are going for in my server right now. And that's only the launch. It's gonna get even crazier. Are you gonna get this item? Are you gonna get the sword skill or the dagger skill from this item? Probably not. You can, however, also get the cord leather gloves, also from Molten Core. It is a fairly common drop. As you can see, it drops from 4 different bosses, so you get a pretty good chance it's gonna drop the first time that you go to Molten Core. They are leather, which is not great, but you can get these gloves and that's pretty much it, you're done. I decided that what I am gonna do to explain to you what this is gonna work like is I am gonna assume you do not have a weapon racial, and I am gonna show you all the hit alternatives so you can build your own Frankenstein of 9% hit, but as soon as you do Molten Core a couple times, you gotta roll on those gloves and you're gonna be using a dagger. Of course, if you're a human or if you're an orc, you're gonna be using your axes or your swords, and that's fine. You don't need the dagger item. This is for the other races. And also, guys, we are getting Dire Maul in January anyway, so is it such a freaking big deal if we do not have the hit cap like these first 3 lockouts, 4 lockouts or so? It is not a big deal at all. Just scrounge up together whatever hit gear you can and get that 9% until then. That's what I would do. That's what I will do, actually. You got, for example, the True Strike shoulders here. 2% hit. There you go. You can get the hit cap off of these leather shoulders. One thing we are gonna get for sure is gonna be the Black Crow. Black Crow is 1% hit. It drops from LBRS. It is a super common item. You absolutely gotta get it. 3 agility too, so it is really nice. An amazing item. Straight up, we're gonna get this item no matter what we do because it is so efficient. And that's 6% hit cap, so if you are a human or an orc, you are pretty much done here. Now for the belt, this belt will be the Mogger's Belt after Dire Maul comes out if you are not a human or an orc. So keep that in mind. We're gonna get rid of this one as soon as we can. But we are gonna go for the Brigand Girdle. It drops from the last boss in Ubers and it's also 1% hit. However, if you are going to the hit cap, that's gonna be a problem because there is not a lot of great options. So you can go, for example, for the Belt of Valor. The Belt of Valor is a reasonable alternative. You sacrifice 1% hit for 7 agility and you lose stamina, so yeah, it is way worse than the Brigand Girdle, but you can go for that. I am gonna leave the Girdle here. You probably wanna get it either way. You can also get a belt from the same quest that you get these gloves, and it is 1% crit, but we are not gonna use it because who in the right mind would sacrifice 2% freaking hit? You need this item, okay? You never take the belt. And that's exactly the problem, because otherwise we would have a very good non-hit option here. Now for the pants, we're gonna get the Pants of Valor. They are just really good, you know, 23 strength and 11 agility. That's gonna take you a long way. Now for the feet, if we are still chasing that 1% hit, we can get the Blood Mail Boots. This is another amazing hit option, and it drops in Scolomans from the mini bosses, so it is super common and nobody really needs it because it is kind of like a hunter item, you know, but you definitely can use it and it is not a huge loss of armor. However, if you are hit capped, we're gonna go for Valor. It is just a really nice stat stick. The rings, there is not a lot of good rings early on actually, and that kinda sucks. You can go for the Band of Flesh. This is from Ramstein in Stratholm. Very easy item to get, but look at those stats. It's 6 strength and 3 agility. That's nothing. Now, one item you probably want to get either way because you're going to be leveling and you might as well level through Marodon. That's going to be the Blackstone Ring. That's a clean 1% hit and 20 attack power on top of that, which is like 10 strength. So it is slightly better stats anyway. This is the messed up part, right? This ring is so good that even if you do not count the hit, even if you waste the hit, it is about as good as the Band of Flesh anyway. So I am gonna take it, even if we go over the hit cap, you might as well take it for later. You get it from Marodon, like the leveling dungeon. So everybody should hit 60 with this ring anyway, because it is such a great item. And as you can see, we are already at 8% hit, so even without a weapon racial on day 1, you're gonna be fine. The other ring, that's a little easier. That can be either the Band of Flesh, once again, but it can also be the Painweaver Band. It's from the last boss in Ubers, and it is 1% crit and 16 attack power. Amazing ring, you always wanna have it. Now for the trinkets, if you are Horde, you get access to an amazing one. The Rune of the Guard Captain. This is Horde only. It is a very simple quest in the hinterlands, and you get it 1% hit, 20 attack power. You cannot go wrong with that. You might as well get it when you level. But otherwise, if you are not Horde, one item that is always going to serve you very well is going to be the Hand of Justice. Right here, 20 attack power, 2% chance to get a Wind Fury proc basically. So this is amazing. This thing will last you pretty much through the entire game. If I didn't have the hit cap, I would take a hit trinket instead, but you definitely want to have it. And for the other trinket, there is other 2 options that you can look into. One of them is going to be the Black Hands Bread. This is from the Onyxia attunement, so your Onyxia quest to get into the raid, you gotta do it anyway, and you're gonna get this 2% crit. That's a very decent one. However, one that is very overlooked and very good is gonna be the Diamond Flask. Why is the Diamond Flask so freaking good for tanks, or for DPSers for that matter? Well, it is 75 strength for 1 minute. As you guys know, nowadays in Era, with all the optimizations we got, a lot of boss fights only last a minute. There is not a lot of fights in a decently competent guild that last a lot more than a minute, and 75 strength is a ridiculous freaking amount of strength. It is like 3 items worth of stats, so of course you wanna use this thing on cooldown. This is from a simple quest also in Sunken Temple here. You gotta do Sunken Temple once and you get it, so you absolutely wanna do it, and that's gonna take care of one of your trinkets. Also, there is another really cool trivia fact about this item. As you can see, it also heals you for 9 health every 5 seconds. Here's the thing, right? Here's the problem. This thing scales with plus healing power, okay? Like your healer gear, your robes, or plus healing whatever, they actually scale with this thing 100%. So if you got 100 healing power, that is 100 health every 5 seconds. What a lot of people do, they call it the Diamond Flask set. They get a bunch of cheap or easy to get healing gear, like robes, like literal caster gear. They put on that caster gear. There is a great add-on for it, Item Rack. This add-on lets you put on items like an entire set in one button. It is amazing. So before the pull, you put all your green healing gear, okay, like a robe, like a caster. You pop this trinket, and then you change back into your armor, and then you pull the boss. And you're gonna get like an insane amount of healing. And guess this. Healing is threat. It is not only threat, it is global threat. So Diamond Flask is not only insane strength, it is an insane value for a trinket, but it is also an ungodly amount of free threat on top of that, and it is AoE threat. So yeah, every single warrior under mother, under cousin gotta get the Diamond Flask. It is not a choice. I feel very bad for the people that are gonna take something else in the quest as a reward, because this thing is gonna take you pretty much, I think it is best in slot even in Nax Ramas. I mean, people swap it, of course they pop it, it is a 6-minute cooldown, so then they just go for something, for another trinket, for example the bread or something, and you should have another trinket to swap into for that very reason too, like the bread. But I think this is pretty much best in slot forever, so you really wanna get it. Now let's talk about the weapons for a second. The weapons are interesting because each race is gonna have a different approach. If you are an orc, you wanna get the Bone Slicing Hatchet. This is from Stratholm. It is a really fast axe, it does a really decent damage, 13 agility. It is gonna last you a long time. You get a better axe in Onyxia, I think. So yeah, it is very easy to get, and it is very convenient for orcs. If you are a human, you wanna get Mira's Song. It drops in Skolomans, also very simple, very easy to get, and it is fast and it does really good damage. However, if you do not have a weapon racial, what are you gonna get? Well, you wanna get a dagger. Of course, the best dagger in the game, it is insane, and that is the Fell Striker. This item is extremely rare, it drops from Rend, and every single rogue wants it, so are you gonna get it? That is very hard to believe. It is very hard to believe that you are gonna get this item, but if you do, you definitely want want it. Now, what you can actually obtain, and it is not that expensive, is the Scarlet Kreese. You can probably get this for like 80 gold. I think 80 gold for a weapon is a pretty reasonable amount. It is super fast, 150, so it is even better than the other weapons. 10 agility on top of that. It is an amazing weapon, and all you gotta do is pony up 80 gold. I mean, that's the value of like a flask or something, so it is not a crazy amount. The shield, of course, that's a very obvious one, is gonna be the Draconian Deflector. This item drops in Ubers, and it is gonna be best in slot pretty much forever. 10 fire resistance, 10 defense, the most armor, the most block. That's it, you're done. Just gotta do Ubers, and you're gonna be doing Ubers every single day of your life as a warrior anyway. Now let's talk about dual wielding, because that's also really interesting. What are some dual wielding options? A really good off-hander for daggers is gonna be the Bone Scraper from Stratholm. Fairly common item. It is a decent main hander too, don't get me wrong. If you can get this for main hand, it is pretty good, but it is gonna be your best off-hander option. When Dire Maul comes out, this is a bit of a wild card. You can get the Distracting Dagger. The Distracting Dagger is awesome because it gives you dagger skill, so even if you're a human, even if you're like an orc, you can put this as your off-hander and you don't have to worry about the weapon skill, you have it anyway. So every single race can get a very good off-hander with the weapon racial on top of that. That's gonna be the number one goal once you get to Dire Maul. If you are a human, you can go for Dal Rends. The main hander of Dal Rend is too slow. If you have both, you might as well do it. 2 Dal Rends, the 50 attack power bonus is decent, but this off-hander, as far as dual wield tanking goes, it is pretty much freaking perfect. It has defense on it, it has armor on it, it has good damage, and it is fast. So you really cannot go wrong with this. You really want to get a Dal Rend off-hander. If you are an orc, you actually have very limited options right now. You can go for Seratil. This is a random wall drop. It has armor on it, and it is fast, and it is pretty good. You can also go for the Riven Spike. This is an item from a rare in LBRS. Not very common, but it is decent. But if you want to go for true best in slot, it is going to be the Flurry Axe. This thing has very low DPS, yes, but it has a chance of Wind Fury. So what does that mean? It means free freaking rage. That's what it means. So as an off-hander, your off-hander is your main way to generate rage when you are dual wielding, and Flurry Axe is the best axe for generating rage. Now this thing is a VOE, and it will probably be going for well over 2000 gold, maybe even more. So are you gonna get it? Probably not. Probably not. But as you can see, the solution to a pre-raid best in slot list is not very easy early on as a warrior. If you were in Dire Maul, if Dire Maul was out, it would be super freaking easy. Just get daggers. But all I can tell you is get 9% hit, just mix and match all the items I showed you and get 9% hit if you do not have a weapon racial until you get your core leather gloves, or until Dire Maul comes out and you can do daggers instead. That's what I would do. Or if you swipe and get the Edge Masters. I mean, if you swipe at easy $200, you can get that gloves. Oh my god. But if you're a human, you get easy mode. And if you're an orc, it is a little harder. Yeah, it is a little harder. But you still get a reasonable amount of options for access, and you can still stick to 6% hit cap. Now, 6% hit cap with weapon racial, it is even better than 9% hit cap, even if you got free hit, because glancing blows, that is also a thing. You get a chance to hit for less, even if you land the hit, and weapon skill reduces that. So ultimately, you always want to get weapon skill no matter what you do. So if you do not have 9% hit before the Molten Core comes out, if you do not have 9% hit right now, do not worry, do not panic, okay? In January, everybody's gonna get 3% hit for free from the dagger skill anyway. But yes, I hope this helps everybody. I also might do a fire resistance guide. I don't know if many of you guys are interested in it. Maybe even a DPS best in slot list. We can also talk about that. We are also streaming on Twitch now. We are doing all the leveling on Twitch because that cannot go on YouTube. It is way too long and YouTube hates it when I do long streams. We're gonna be coming back to streaming on YouTube for the raids and stuff. That's gonna be, I think the 15th of December we're gonna do a raid. Time to be decided. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.